Welcome to episode 20 of Escape the Rat Race Radio. I'm your host, Christian Rodwell, and this is your ticket to escape the 9 to 5.
When it comes to starting up a business, if I was to go into a business again and start up, I would want to make sure that it could work straight away through advertising. And advertising can be a scary word for a lot of people because it means you've got to pay money to see if you can make money. But I would say that it's the fastest way to know if what you've got is going to work or not. My honest advice to people these days is to say, go out there and start advertising. Put a budget together. Make sure you put the best ad campaign you can put together. Make sure you do all your research, whatever it is you're going to do, but then make sure the next thing you do is to say, right, we're going to run ads on this. I'm going to make sure that those ads turn into profit. Because if you can do that, once you do it, you've got business then. Before that, you've got like a hobby and a hope.
On this week's episode of Escape the Rat Race Radio, I'm really pleased to welcome Tom Breeze. Now, Tom is the founder and owner of Viewability, which is one of the UK's, if not the world's, leading video advertising agencies. And Tom works with some real heavyweight clients of the personal development and entrepreneurial world. Some big names which I'm sure you'll recognise, such as Frank Kern, Patel, Amy Porterfield, and many, many others. In fact, Andy Harrington being one of his big clients as well. So I've known Tom for a couple of years now. I first saw Tom speak on stage at Dan Bradbury's event, and since then have grown to get to know Tom. And Tom's such a wonderful, really, really kind guy. And he shares some real good secrets on today's podcast. Now, if you are a small business owner, maybe you're a solopreneur, you've got a project which is kind of up and running, and you're really looking to drive traffic and start getting some sales and build your personal brand, then video advertising is one of the fastest and most cost-effective ways of being able to quickly test your products and your services and being able to see if there's a demand out there in the marketplace, and then if there is, easily and quickly scaling up and without having to spend thousands of pounds on advertising like it used to be. And also the creation of the videos now is so much easier and simpler. And so Tom is an expert. Tom has been studying this and testing thousands of different ways of running different types of advertising on YouTube, and also testing out other platforms such as Facebook as well. So if you're at that stage where you're ready to start investing a little bit into your marketing, or even maybe ramping things up a little bit to actually drive your business to the next level, then I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode. So without further ado, let's head over to my interview with Tom Breeze. So welcome, Tom, to Escape the Rat Race Radio. How are you today?
Very good, Chris. How are things?
Excellent. Really good. So, Tom, where in the world are you right now?
Right now, I'm in a very hot office in Reigate, just south of London. Our AC broke down today in the office, so we've all been roasting here because it's been a hot summer's day. But based in Reigate, just south of London, and so it's a very beautiful day.
Yeah, well, I know the area well. I grew up in that area, and in fact, we've got some mutual friends, Teo and Anthony, who we were in the studio with when you were recording some of your ad school programs last year, actually, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Down in the studio. We're in London at that time, actually. Yes, it was a good event. Good kind of a session to do some training products and things. It was very fun.
Well, Tom, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on Escape the Rat Race Radio. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And I first encountered you really, must be a couple of years ago now. And that was at BizFest. And you were speaking on stage about video advertising. And you were sharing the stage with Frank Kern. And it was Dan Bradbury and Nick James's event. And we've had Nick James on the podcast. So 2 years has passed really quickly. And, I'm sure you've been up to many, many exciting things since then.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like the last 2 years. Funny enough, talking about Frank Kern, he's now a client actually, so that's quite cool. Yeah, so we've had a good couple of years. YouTube advertising has been very kind to us as a platform, and I just kind of focused in and niched down on that topic in particular. And we've had a great couple of years. I've spoken on many stages around the world. Kind of a relatively good sized team now as well. We're up to about 9 people in the team now. It's a good size for that sort of for this sort of agency. The next level up will be another question mark for me in my growth and things like that and that sort of nature. So that's exciting. Yeah, we're doing really well, and it's an exciting time for us as well here at Viewability.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, many of our Escape the Rat Race members will know you already because we actually did a webinar together, didn't we, last year? And that was, I think, just before or just after you'd spoken on stage at the Traffic Conversion Summit for Ryan Dice over in America, which must have been a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, so we did last year. I had a room around about must be 700 or 800 people the March just gone, I gave a couple of presentations, and one of them was to around about 2,500 people, and that's definitely the biggest I've ever done, and that was pretty daunting. It was very well received, so that was good, and I didn't bottle it completely on stage, so yeah, that was that was a good event.
No, I love the way you just take it by the bullet. You just go straight to camera and record ads live on stage in front of hundreds of people. And I haven't seen you mess up yet, so you're doing pretty well, Tom.
Oh, I definitely mess up a lot when I'm by myself, for sure.
So, Tom, for the listeners who have not had the pleasure of experiencing your work so far, would you care just sharing a little bit about what it is you do with your company, Viewability, and really how you've established yourself as one of the UK's, if not the world's, leading video advertisers right now?
Yeah, so what we do now is a company called Viewability. We are 90% agency and 10% training, so to speak. So, like most people know us as a result of the agency work we do. We work with people like Frank Kern, Brendan Burchard, Amy Porterfield, Andy Jenkins, Stuart Ross, T. Harvecker, those sort of people, Neil Patel as well. So we've been really lucky to have some really rapid growth over the last couple of years. Yeah, so what we do is we run YouTube ads for people. So we don't do anything else, but we do YouTube ads exceedingly well. So we go out there and we run an agency and a cost per acquisition model, which really means that when we advertise, we take all the funds and all the risk up front ourselves. So we'll say, okay, we'll create the videos with the client, we'll script the videos, they'll go and produce the videos, we'll edit them, and then we run their ads for them as well. So we do all the setup completely free. And then once they start seeing results, that based on a lead or based on a sale, they'll only pay us when they start to see results. So it means it's kind of a very no-brainer conversation to have with most people. It's like, great, you'll just run it and we'll pay you out of the profits we make. Yes, that's how it works. But it just means we're very selective about who we work with, and we have to filter quite a lot of the time, because obviously with a financial model like that, you tend to get a lot of people wanting to do business with you. It means if you're doing the right job and you're doing it well, you can get some really good results. So that's kind of the agency side of things. And more recently, just because we've been saying no to so many people who have good businesses but might not be at the right stage for us, we have started developing like training products and more of like I suppose like exclusive group, so to speak. We haven't got a name for it just yet, but it's those people that come through that would be perfect for us to mentor them or train them or coach them through the process, and then they can build it for themselves and build it in their own teams and things. So that's kind of like a new area for us to explore as well. We haven't gone into that marketplace before, so that's where part of the company's going as well. So that's exciting for us as well.
YouTube's been around for what, 10 years now, but it feels like right now, all the buzzwords, everyone's just talking about Facebook and Facebook advertising, but you've been quietly working away on YouTube and having such amazing success. I mean, I've seen the stats, which are like 300-400% return on investment for some of your clients. And I know you do work with Facebook as well, but I'd love to know kind of what led you into setting up the agency, and how you specifically kind of decided to niche in on YouTube and just get really, really good at learning the advertising model there and how to get such great results using video on YouTube. And now obviously that can translate over to Facebook as well with their advertising platform.
Whenever I give the story of this, I always try and make sure I'm not doing that thing where I'm giving a story based on what sounds good. like the benefit of hindsight is always that sort of thing where you look back romantically and you say, oh, this is how it was all built, and this is like we had this really lucky break at this point, and we went through the struggle. And I don't really have that, to be honest. I don't have a great story about how it all came about, but I can give you an honest feedback and give you kind of like how it actually worked, which is what normally most people respond to more than anything else. But when I started my first business, it was like I used to teach people the theory of public speaking, and I trained with like psychology was my background, and I've worked a lot with different people to focus on how they can become better speakers and communicate more effectively. I got really good at that. So I used to see people for like half a day, used to charge them for around, it was about £500, £600 per half day session. When I was young, I'm still not too old, I'm 34 now, but when I was younger, I just had the energy to be able to do 2 of those sessions a day and not stop. And so I was making pretty good money when I was like 25, 26, 27, those sorts of age range, especially when most of my mates were just going out into town and getting drunk every weekend. I was more focusing on the business. That kind of like worked really well for me for a while. And then I just realized that the niche of like fear of public speaking was great from a standpoint of like people would come with such an anxious moment where they're just like really desperate to go and speak on stage very soon because they are like asked to give a presentation. But they were so anxious and so fearful that asking them to part with money in order to get a session with me was a pretty easy sell. So I learned to sell the easiest way of like, hey, look, you're desperate for this. I've got it. Should we do some business? And it was as simply as that. I didn't have any sales strategies or anything like that. It was more a case of being a bit more of a consultant through that sales process. But the problem is with that business is that every time I got a client, I got very good at curing that fear of public speaking. And then they would go back into the world and they're like, great, done. And there was no repeat business there because I've solved their biggest problem. And sure, I may have been able to upsell them maybe into like, hey, you should become part of our speaking academy or something like that. But I didn't really have the sales skills at that time to be able to develop that. And not the business sense really either. Like the way I was getting clients in was through Google advertising. So I'd do a lot of Google AdWords stuff, do a lot of text ads, image ads, because there was no such thing as video ads at the time. And then I'd filling my funnel, so to speak. It was a simple case of just a form on my website, and clients would come and call me, and I'd pick up the phone and we'd do business. So I kept it really simple. I didn't have all these clever click-through rates and all this sort of stuff. I didn't know all the numbers of the business. All I knew was like, hey, I spend a bit of money on AdWords, and I have all these phone calls, and they turn into profit, and I was good with that. Then over time, I looked at that business and realized that if I wanted to really grow, I couldn't keep on doing one-to-one stuff because first of all, I was knackered, I was tired, I couldn't kind of continue doing that. But then also the issue I had was it all came down to me. If I was sick for a couple of weeks or if I didn't want to work for a couple of weeks, I literally couldn't decide to do that. My income would stop at that point. I realized I needed to change the sort of business I had. And that's where I was focusing in and looking at different things I was doing in the business. And one of the things I wanted to do to begin with was identify what was the thing that would help me spend less on advertising to get more results. And so I created a video and I used that video on my website. And it was a case of that being about a 7-minute video. And it was me just talking about the fear of public speaking, how you can overcome it. And that one video on my website increased my conversion rates by 3x'd it, meaning that from my advertising I was doing, I realized that I could get 3 times as many prospects or people calling me wanting to have a session with me for much cheaper, basically. And so I was like, wow, this is working incredibly well. And this one video had literally transformed the profits of my business. And so that's kind of where I started to get into video at that point. From there, I started to create a lot more videos. I ran a big workshop with people who are business owners who had the fear of public speaking. And a lot of them came up to me and said, oh, I really want to learn how to be really good on camera. Can you teach me that too? So I started it's just kind of evolved into more of the business side of things. And from there, from video, I was working with people to help them present on camera, come across really well. And soon enough, I started helping them actually create the videos. And once we started creating the videos, it was then a case of how do I promote it as a business owner? And it just kind of flowed into this new business. And that's kind of really how it all started for me. It was not kind of a case of kind of coming up with this great idea one day and thinking, oh, I'm going to do video. It was more a case of the business has just evolved into more of a video production company and then into a video advertising company. And that's really how it all came about. And that's what started it off, really.
Obviously, Google owning YouTube, the advertising platform, you were familiar with that already through having learned Google AdWords. And I guess the transition over to the YouTube advertising wasn't too dissimilar. Would I be right?
Yeah, exactly. I knew the platform already, so that really did help things from the outset. So I kind of learned AdWords, which I didn't have an extensive knowledge of AdWords. I just knew what was working for me, really. And at that point, I didn't necessarily go straight into the advertising of those videos. The first thing I did is I actually teamed up with a business partner in the end. So I would create the videos with clients, get them to present really well, get them to come across really well. And then my business partner would do a lot of SEO behind the video. So he would put the right keywords in, description, titles, tags, do all the clever SEO like backlinking and all that sort of good stuff. Over time, SEO got more difficult to the point at which it just wasn't cost effective any longer. We had a swarm of staff that were kind of working on SEO stuff all day long. It was working really well at one point, but then it just got more and more difficult. So I had to change the business. And so I just really went back to what I knew that works best for me, which is advertising. And I didn't know anything about the SEO world, really, apart from being in it. I just kind of absorbed some information around it. But I wouldn't say I was an SEO expert by any stretch. I was more because of the video expert. Then I thought, well, I can advertise and I've got these videos that are really good. Let me have a go at doing it this way. So I ran my first ad for Andy Harrington, actually. It was him and a couple of other clients as well. But Andy Harrington's videos just blew up. I was like, wow, a lot of our staff were using a lot of resource to kind of get his videos ranking for amazing keywords like public speaking or presentation skills worldwide. So huge amounts of views and traffic coming in for him. But then I just realized like I could get so much more traffic per day by paying for it. But as long as it turned into profit for the client, it was like, well, the client was happy to see that he would, let's say, for example, generated a couple of $1,000s, let's say, for example, and it cost us half that to generate that profit, but it's a computer doing it as opposed to a staff. I was like, this seems like it's a good idea to go down this route. As a result, I was like started like spending more money on advertising because I knew the platform of AdWords well, and then the client was really, really happy. And so that's really the point at which I said, well, because I started funding the advertising because we weren't getting the SEO results. So I was like, I'll fund it. I'll see how we can get on, and just allocated a part of my personal money to it. And it just worked really well. And I was like, okay, this is where the business is going now. And we made a shift, and we ended up kind of like, I started a new business. Well, I evolved the business, so to speak. And it's just me now with sole ownership of the company. But it's just like one of those things where we just found our home, so to speak, which is YouTube advertising. We have flirted with different things like Facebook advertising and things. We can do it well, but we just need our time and effort, and we need our focus on YouTube advertising. It's our golden goose, so to speak. Like, I don't want to dilute it with anything else we're doing. It's just like, hey, look, we are the YouTube ads people. We spend all day, every day, just talking about YouTube advertising. I don't even know anything else about like websites and all that sort of stuff. I know what looks good, but I don't know actually what converts. It's like, I'm really, really good at YouTube advertising. That's kind of my thing. Everything else is like, I know advertising as well, I must say, but YouTube advertising is like my forte, like video advertising.
Well, I think that's a really great story there, by the way, Tom. Thanks for sharing that. But I think that last point especially is something that we really need to hammer home, because many people that I find within the Escape the Rat Race community, and myself included, we've been on this kind of journey. And, the entrepreneur journey is a journey of self-discovery in many ways, where you kind of realize that there is a world outside of just turning up and working for someone else and getting paid a set amount every month. And when you embark into that, it can almost become like, just unlimited opportunities which you could choose to take the direction of. And I think for many people, it's the overwhelm of opportunities that actually holds people back, because they just don't know where to focus. And so I think that point there about just focusing on one thing and getting very, very good at that, and then through time becoming the go-to person for that thing is so important, isn't it, in building a business and creating that personal brand around yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's very easy for me to look back at with rose-tinted glasses and think, oh, well, I found my kind of like thing in YouTube advertising. It takes a long time to get there, and it takes a lot of effort and focus and realization and self-reflection to realize this is what I'm actually really good at. A number of times I found myself feeling like, oh, it's going to be so difficult to say that I'm this sort of person. But then just spending the time and energy in that one niche for a while, reading every book you can find on it, going on different courses and doing it, and then going out there and actually testing it yourself. If you find you're really good at one thing, I'd almost say, to the detriment of everything else, like just let everything else slide away and just become the master of that one thing. Because as long as you're passionate about it, as long as you enjoy it, and as long as you can imagine yourself doing that for the rest of your life, you say, right, that's my one thing I absolutely love. And at the same time, I can make it pay the bills and more. And if you can do that, then if you've got those two things come together, then the rest of it kind of works itself out to a certain extent, because you just say, do you know what? It's just me doing this to begin with. I'm passionate about it. I love it. And then as soon as you get busy enough, then you bring in another person. You say, okay, I'm going to train someone up now. They're going to take on part of the business. They're going to do this, that, and the other. Then as soon as you offset some of the work you've got, then you can get to focus on the areas you really love, and you give the bits you don't love quite so much now to the people that really love that. That's the amazing thing is that it's always about team, making sure you build the right team around you. You've got to start off from a position where you love what you're doing. So you don't have to absolutely love it, but enough to be like you'll wake up and be excited to go to work every day. If you can do that and then also make that thing pay the bills, there's two things there. Sometimes I look at projects that I think, oh my God, I'd love to be able to do this, but I can't work out how to make money from it. I need to either go in there with eyes wide open and say, right, that's a passion, but it's not going to pay the bills. It might not be the right time for that. But then sometimes I do these passion things because I love it. So it's just a case of working out what it is you want and making sure that passion can get you to where you want to be as well.
And would you say important to learn the skill of saying no to certain things as well? Like you say there, if you can't see a way to monetize it, then as much as you might want to do something, sometimes you just have to get good at saying no.
Yeah. I read a book called Essentialism, and that book for me, whilst I wouldn't say that I live my life by it every single day, at least I try live my life by it. But it's Essentialism by Greg McKeown. He wrote this book called Essentialism, and the premise behind it really is to say, If something's not a hell yeah, like, oh my God, I can't wait to do that. That's going to be amazing for the business. That's going to be really aligned with what I'm doing. Then it's a no. Whilst it might feel like you're leaving money on the table. And I have this conversation with some of the staff and some of the people we mentor as well. Like, while sometimes you feel like you want to say yes because it's a great opportunity or there's like money that you can get from that project, it's like, yes, but you're not building for the now. Sometimes you're building for the 12 month, the 2 year, the 5 year plan. By saying no to opportunities means you can say yes to the right things. We've had plenty of opportunities where we feel like we've had great opportunities, things that I would never have dreamt of even a year ago have come up. And we've had to say no to them because it's like, I now know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. There's going to be bigger projects on the horizon. There's going to be bigger things we'll be doing. You get to know that about yourself. And obviously, once you've got the money coming in, you can rely upon that money. Then it's easier to say no, of course. It's important to say no, even when it's tough to say no. It's kind of, if it doesn't feel like it's going to help you move forward in your journey, then it's got to be a no sometimes, which is tough, and it goes against what most people would advise you to do. But that's something that I found really, really useful for myself and the agency.
I definitely want to get into the nitty gritty of some of these video ads with you in a second, Tom, but I just love the direction that this conversation is going. And I think the ability to say no really comes when you're clear about what it is you want. And we talk a lot on the podcast with various guests about having a vision. And you just mentioned there about kind of having your 2 year, 5 year plan. Was vision something that you had when you were building the business? Is it something you now clearly have? And I know a lot of people struggle with this, and we can kind of wrap goal setting into it a little bit as well. But for someone who's listening to the podcast now, who's kind of got their idea about their business, but maybe still working that full-time job, how important in your experience is having a really clear vision and setting goals and milestones to keep you focused?
It's so many conflicting viewpoints I have in my own head around pretty much every decision I ever make and every question I get like that, because I feel like I haven't had a vision to be like, I'm going to be the YouTube ads guy. I've never had that vision, but I've become that person. And maybe it's been an unconscious thing. I know I watched a movie a long time ago called What Women Want. I don't know if you've seen that film with Mel Gibson. So he's an advertising guy. I was like, oh my God, I'd love to do that when I get older, but then never thought of it again. And maybe that was just in the back of my mind, and that's guided me in some way, shape, or form. I'm not too sure. I do love the world of advertising, and that's been something that's kind of like, I know that I've always wanted to get into. I would say that in terms of getting a real clear vision, I think that I wouldn't stress about it, put it that way. I wouldn't feel like, oh my God, I haven't got my vision sorted. I don't know what I'm going to do. I would say if you saw where I came from, it was like, hey, this is what I can do really well. Let's get into it. Let's make some money. Let's make this business thing happen. It was more the business and having the business and enjoying the business was more important to me, as opposed to actually what I did to begin with and where I was going with it. If you really feel like you've got it and you feel like you can do something and you feel like it's going to be rewarding to do something and you think it's going to be great fun and all that sort of stuff, if you feel like it's going to be right for you as a business or you as a person to have that business, then I'd say get into it and go all in and do your very best you can, because you're going to evolve, you're going to change, you're going to kind of move in different directions. The world of like what it was 20 years ago or even before that, when people ran a business, it was like, here's a factory, let's build a factory and have workers, and then you're stuck into that plan, right? Because you can't make quick decisions and change on a dime. But when you're running an entrepreneurial business and you're online, you could be doing one thing and you could be doing another thing the next day, and it's just a quick shift. It's much more dynamic and it's a lot easier to make those changes quickly. It's scary sometimes, of course, because you've got to build a brand and you've got to build your business up and you've got to do all that stuff as well. So the longer you're in it, the better. But I wouldn't say like from day one you have to have that like sole focus of like, here's my 5 year plan, because that's going to change. Like, I think that one really interesting concept the military, the US and the UK military used to employ years ago was this idea that when you went into war or in a battle, let's say, for example, there'd be a lot of people that would say, okay, when we go into this battle, every individual soldier would have a plan to say, you're going to go here and you're going to kill that person and then you're going to do this and then you're going to do that. That's your plan. Just do that. Everyone had this like set plan. Of course, on paper, that looks really good because you're like, wow, that's the best plan I've ever seen. What most people don't realize is that when you go into battle, the enemy have got their own plans as well. And it's not going to be as straightforward as you want it to be. So they shifted their attention, their strategy is to say, okay, instead of everyone having an individual plan, instead just have what they call now a commander's intent. A commander's intent is more a case of like, okay, look, everyone knows what the major goal is here, which is like to say we want to capture that fort at the top of the hill, let's say, for example. Here's a few ideas of where we think we're going to go with it. Here's a rough plan, but you're all soldiers, you know what you're doing. Let's go out there. We're not going to look at every minutiae and micromanage each process that each soldier's doing, but instead, we say, look, you know what we're going to do. As a squadron, here's what we've got to do. We've got to get that area. We've got to help this kind of military group do this, that, and the other. And so it's more a case of like, we're heading in this direction. And I think that would be more of an easier idea. So it doesn't have to be a clarity of the vision in terms of like, here's what we're going to do day to day, or here's the plan, here's what we're going to do in the first year, the second year, the third year. I know for the first few years of running my business, it was not good years. And it was like tough. And it's different now, but it was always tough in those first few years. And I remember reading books where they said, oh, if your first year in business isn't going very well, maybe you should have a look at what you're doing. And of course, I was looking at what I was doing, but I couldn't think of doing anything else. And it took me longer than most businesses to really get going. But I would say, like, try and have that commander's intent of saying, here's kind of where I'm going, and trust in the process, and trust in the fact that, like, you're moving in one direction. And as long as you're not necessarily clarity of focus, but more a case of like, if I was going to walk in a direction, this is the way I want to go, but I'm not, if I have to move around something or I have to change direction at some point, that's fine too. I think that just like getting into it and knowing that you will evolve and things will change and things will be challenging and you might need to shift, that's part and parcel of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. And it's fun. It's a challenge, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's it. They often say that everything you want is outside of your comfort zone. So you have to set those big goals, don't you, to at least have something to aim for. But if you don't have any goal whatsoever, then you're just going to drift and you're never going to know when you've made it. And I did a webinar last week and had an image of a football pitch without any goals. And it's like, you can't win the game if you don't have a goal.
Yeah, exactly. The interesting thing is I've seen a lot of like these quotes online and stuff where like the biggest success is just outside your comfort zone. I don't think I've ever made a decision in the last year that isn't inside of my comfort zone. I know that's a new challenge for me. I don't know where we're going with that. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I can trust in myself. I know that I'm not going to get it right first time, and I might need to call in on some friends or some coaches or some people that have been there before and done it. But like, I know I'll get there. You'll just know that you'll be able to trust in yourself to be like, I'll work it out when I get there, whether I need help or whether I need whatever it is. There's people out there that can help. And it's not like it's going to be, even if you're working on some completely new, innovative idea, there's always draw information from other people to help you along that way. It's not like you're going to be going out alone by yourself, whilst you might feel like that sometimes because you are bringing a completely new product to the marketplace potentially. There's always people out there that can help and guide, and people are amazing. Like, other people are amazing when you work with them. So yeah, it's good fun.
And it's important, isn't it, when you're starting out, because you enter this world of kind of entrepreneurship and personal development, and sometimes friends and family, they're not on the same kind of wavelength as you, and they don't quite have this vision that you have, and so it's important to go along to meetups and networking events and start learning from people who are a few steps further along than you, because it really drives you. And when you do have those tough days, then you have these people to go to who can keep your morale high and say, look, just keep pushing on, like you will make it.
There's a lot of stuff out there where anytime I've connected with the right people, so it's just choosing the right people, like going to certain meetups and things. I've been to certain meetups where I felt like I was not gaining anything from being there and more giving than I was receiving, which is fine. That happens and things. But there's been definitely some places I've been to more recently, which has not changed the game, so to speak, but it's more a case of like, you just go to the right places, go to the right conferences where you just know that like, okay, here's where the top caliber people go. Sit, listen, and communicate with these people, because the ideas there are much better. The idea is like saying, hey, even advice like, you should not do it like that, you should do it like this instead. Even when that makes me feel like, oh my God, I don't know if I agree or not, and I feel like it's insulting to call my business crap or whatever it is, sometimes you need it just to either be more certain yourself or be more accepting to be like, okay, I need to make a shift, I need to make a change. And I know a number of times I have a business mentor that I ask him ideas and say, hey, look, I want to try and think about doing this. And he's like, no, don't do it. Sit back and do what you're doing right now. Just stay in it. The advice I get from those sorts of people are incredible, because I just know I can make better decisions based on the fact that other people are telling me, no, don't do that. That's a stupid idea. And I look back and I'm like, yes, they were so right. And so you've got to keep your eyes open and don't feel like you know everything, and keep that focus as well.
I guess we better start talking about some video ad tips and techniques, hadn't we? We've got inside the mind of Tom Breeze, and it's been absolutely brilliant. And everything you've said has really resonated with me, Tom, and I totally agree. You really have to just take that first step. It won't necessarily be the thing that you're going to end up with, but you have to take that first step and just get good at your game, and you'll attract people to you, and you may have some twists and turns along the way. But if you don't take that first step, you'll never ever get anywhere. So, I love that. So let's talk about some video tips, because many of our listeners now will have small businesses. They'll be working on a side hustle, as the Americans love to say, and, trying to cram in a few hours in an evening and weekends to build the personal brand, to start, marketing their product and their service. and maybe overwhelmed at the thought of diving into the world of video advertising, and would love to learn, is it expensive to start creating video ads, and what are the steps that they can take to actually start implementing something themselves and actually start seeing some results relatively quickly.
When it comes to starting up a business, if I was to go into a business again and start up, I would want to make sure that it could work straight away through advertising. I say that as an advertising guy, so I think I'm slightly biased maybe, and advertising can be a scary word for a lot of people because it means you've got to pay money to see if you can make money. But I would say that it's the fastest way to know if what you've got is going to work or not. There's so many different ways, of course. There are things like content marketing, SEO, social media, all this stuff. And I agree that all that free stuff is important. But there's not a direct sell there. There's not a kind of like, hey, look, I've got this thing. Do you want it? Or I've got this webinar coming up. Would you like to register for it? If you can't sell that to a cold audience, people who don't know you, but you could get them to be interested in coming on your webinar or whatever it is you're promoting, buy your book, buy your product, whatever it is you're promoting. If you can't get people to do that through advertising, I think there's going to be a struggle in your business, whether you do it from Facebook, whether you do it from YouTube. My honest advice to people these days is to say, go out there and start advertising. Put a budget together. Make sure you put the best ad campaign you can put together. Make sure you do all your research, whatever it is you're going to do, whether it be a book, webinar, whatever it is you're going to promote. Make sure you get that nailed down, but then make sure the next thing you do is to say, right, we're going to run ads on this. I'm going to make sure that those ads turn into profit. Because if you can do that, once you do it, you've got business then. Before that, you've got like a hobby and a hope, really, in terms of like, let's hope this content marketing gets out there, someone reads it and wants to do business with me. That's fine. You can't turn up the tap, so to speak. You can't go and create more content. I suppose you could go and create more content, but it's still like you're having to be passive and wait for it. The best way to get out there is to do this advertising. The great filter for this, for YouTube advertising especially, is that I would only recommend people get into it, especially like startups and entrepreneurs. I'd only recommend you get into YouTube advertising if your customers or your potential customers are going to YouTube and typing in keywords like how to do this, how to do that, or maybe you're selling products, it might be like product review on this, for example, or say, for example, you're selling a kettle. Let's say, I don't know why kettle's come into my head, but let's say, for example, you're selling a kettle. You want to make sure that people are going to YouTube and typing in best kettle 2017 or cheapest kettle 2017 or whatever, or best kettle review. And so there's going to be all these videos about this stuff, but you can run your ads to get in front of that traffic. The beauty of that traffic is nice and cheap, so we don't have to spend a lot of money to get in front of these people. Let's say 3-4 cents per view or something along those lines. When you run that traffic, you're going to find that like you're getting in front of the people that are going to YouTube and typing the stuff and searching already. They don't know who your brand is, so it's cold traffic, but it's super motivated because they've already gone to YouTube looking for information about this thing. So let's say, for example, you did a product on how to run a successful webinar. Let's say, for example, that was your niche. Then you would go and advertise on all different keywords around webinars, but most people on YouTube are going to be typing in things like how to run a webinar, how to sell on a webinar, what webinar software is best to use, all that sort of keyword data that people are typing in how to. They want tutorials, they want information, they want demonstrations. Those sorts of people, if your customers are going to YouTube typing that stuff in, then you have a market on YouTube. If not, and you feel like there's not going to be a natural connection there, then I would say Facebook's probably a better platform for you to be on, because you can get in front of Facebook people in a slightly different way, but you do it based on their interests, and you can hopefully incentivize them to want to take action with you. But I would say that if you do have people typing in how-to videos on YouTube that you think would be your ideal market, man, YouTube could be so exciting for you. And so that's kind of like what I'd start out to say. This is for definitely people that are typing in how-to stuff, not for people when their customers aren't doing that.
And we're certainly not here today to plug your courses, but you do have like a fantastic online course which shows people exactly how to create their own YouTube ads, and that's on the Ad School. So it would be wrong of us not to share that now, because I was in the studio when you were recording that, so I know firsthand just what absolute top quality that is, and how it literally takes someone from complete beginner, step by step, everything you need to know to actually create successful video ads on YouTube. And you've also got one for Facebook as well, if people wanted that as well.
I think when it comes to like the video ad itself, say for example, you do have this audience out there who are typing in how-to videos and looking up information about what it is you do. I always say, like, if in order to create your video, you need like 4 C's. That's kind of the formula that we tend to use. The first is like your claim, which is going to be like, in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 things that are going to show you how to run the perfect webinar. the first sentence needs to grab and be the hook for the whole of your video. Like, in this video, I'm going to share with you or teach you these 3 things, for example. And then we add on at the end of it, so you can. I'm going to teach you these 3 things so you can run the perfect webinar and close more sales. But there's that so you can is important. So whatever it is you're going to say in that video, I'm going to teach you this so you can achieve this. That's like the first part of the video. Then we add in a bit of credibility. This is the second C. So credibility is just really kind of like a very quick statement to make sure that the viewer can appreciate what you're about to share with them. So you might say, hey, look, the stuff I'm sharing with you here is from chapter 3 in my book that I've just released, or the stuff I'm sharing with you here I shared in front of 600 people live on stage, or the stuff I'm sharing with you here really transformed this customer's or this client of mine to go from this result to this result. Whatever it might be, you can always find something that can show people that, like, okay, cool, this looks like you know what you're talking about. Not like a big old spiel about how good you are, just a quick 1 sentence, some credibility there. Then we go into some content, and the content section, that's the third C of the 4. So the third C, the content, is more a demonstration of value. So if it's a product you're selling, you want to demonstrate the features and what they can do for the viewer. Let's say, for example, you are selling a service of some sort, then you want to give 3 really good tips away. Demonstrate your value by giving 3 really good tips away. So it's like, if you want to get more people attending your webinars and buying from you, first thing you need to do is make sure you're really good at email marketing. Do this email, and this email, because it'll work really well for you. Second thing you need to do is make sure that you structure your webinar in this way. And the third thing you need to make sure you do is, after the webinar, follow up in the perfect way as well. Give them really good advice around those areas. That can take like 2 minutes or so to give really, really good advice. And then you want them to get to the end of that content to think, that was amazing. I loved it. Thank you so much. What's the next step? You want to get them to the point where they're loving your content so much that they realize it's just a subsection or a subset of what you've got available at the next stage. And so that final C is the call to action, where you say, okay, brilliant. If you've liked this stuff, you're going to absolutely love what I've got for you next, which is a webinar, a book, a PDF, whatever it is you have for people. But make sure it's just a logical next step. So it's like, if you're saying, hey, look, I'm going to teach you everything about webinars, don't go and sell them a book, because they're probably expecting to go on a webinar and they want to learn that way. Or if you're talking about, here's how to sell a book, then give a book. Sort of like, just make sure it's kind of like a relevant call to action there, and make it really easy for people. If you do that, then in the video as you create, it's going to really resonate with your audience. You don't have to be good at sales because you're just giving good value. You're letting the content itself do the selling. It's an easy formula. We try and keep the videos down to about 3 minutes in length. But if you do that, you should find you have the perfect structure to a video. As a result, when you run your video ads, it should work really well for you.
If anyone wants like a live demo of that, then you've probably already seen it like thousands of times when you've been on YouTube, because I know you've worked with Andy Harrington, as you mentioned earlier on, and you've been working with the Passion into Profits book, which is a fantastic book. But oh my God, is that all over YouTube? I mean, you've just like smashed it. Absolutely.
That it might look like it's all over YouTube, but it's clever remarketing. So what will happen is we'll run the ads to begin with. As soon as you see the ad, if you don't buy it, we'll follow you around the internet a little bit until you do buy it. So that's remarketing and effort. So it looks like we're everywhere, but we're just in front of you.
No, it works so well, Tom. Many people might be asking, okay, well, Google AdWords, that kind of, it peaked out, and then obviously Facebook came along. How much longer has this paid advertising model got, and until it just gets too expensive, or until everybody's doing it? But you're in the thick of it, so what's your opinion on the future of paid advertising?
Oh my God, it's been the past. Ever since we've known it, it's going to be the future for as long as we know it as well. It's a model that works for everybody, so it's difficult to think that it won't work in the future. If you think back to like the earliest days of newspaper, billboards, everything, it's like you pay to be in the right place, and this is just a digital version of that. So paid advertising is only getting stronger and stronger. I think it's going to become more and more tailored to the individual, a bit like you see in Minority Report. Pretty much all of that stuff has come together and proves that this is the way that advertising is going. But like, you'll be walking down the road in the future, they'll be able to see it's you, maybe not by your retina per se, but by the watch you're wearing, or by the way you walk potentially, like your gait, because that's always unique to the individual. The chances of you walking down the road and having a billboard talk directly to you, or through your headphones or whatever it is very likely. That's kind of like where the next stage of probably advertising will go. The thing is, with all of this, is that everyone gets a bit worried as entrepreneurs to be like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, what if Facebook gets more expensive? What if YouTube gets more expensive? What if all these platforms get more expensive? That's such a short-sighted worry to have, because learn the strategies of how to sell in your business. It doesn't matter what platform comes along. You just got to beat the competition on these platforms. That's the only thing. You got to become better than your competition at doing this. And if you're nimble and you're kind of a small business and you can kind of focus on this stuff, you should be able to beat anybody, because you can be more personal you make it, the more intricate you can become. Like, just learn how to advertise your business and you'll have that endless source of traffic coming through. And the people that can't advertise their business quite so well will be the people that fall by the wayside.
It's never really been easier, has it, than the age we're in now with the technology we've got at our fingertips to get clear about what it is that you really want out of your life. What, as you mentioned earlier, what are you great at? What do you love doing? And what are you going to get paid for? And then very, very quickly testing that through paid ads, and then ramping it up, just really scaling up and just building that. And I don't think in our lifetime we've had an opportunity like we have now to be able to just dive in and create a business and test it and start making money so quickly, have we?
I think that, like, the thing we have now more than anything is the data. We have the ability to measure and track and do everything. It's all at our fingertips. And so the beauty of that is that data goes so deep and you can learn so much from it. And so you can learn the trends. Like, we've literally just downloaded today a video list of 144,000 videos that our ads have appeared in front of. So we just know that, like, okay, this is all the videos our videos have appeared in front of as pre-roll ads, and these are where we're getting the sales. This is where the view rate's really good. And so we can identify which videos are performing best. Then take the data from that and be like, all right, well, how is this going to guide us on the next step that we take? What have we learned from the experience we've had so far, and what can we learn next? That is just unbelievable. You would never have had that with a TV ad, with a billboard ad, or with a text ad, or you just don't have that, like, data in front of you. But with video and with advertising, you get all that data. You get everything. You can see everything, and you'll learn so much so quickly. And as long as you're savvy with the data, that's why it's a case of, like, learning this stuff. But as soon as you're savvy with it and you get this data in, you'll know what seems to resonate with your audience, and you'll know where to spend the money and where not to spend the money. And that's what no one does right now. And that's why I feel like, yes, we have to be a little bit geeky with the numbers, but it's not unenjoyable. It's stuff where it's, like, put in front of you and it's shown to you, and you're like, great, we could make great decisions on that. So I feel like we're just at the perfect moment where we can get the data, but also we can interpret the data more easily and make decisions based on that as well. And when we do that, you can build proper businesses.
So Tom, you're already working with some of the absolute greats out there. You've already mentioned Frank Kern, I believe Brendan Burchard, Andy Harrington, of course, Neil Patel. Is there anyone yet that you're not working with? Because we can put this out there. We're getting pretty good rankings on iTunes worldwide at the moment. So is there anyone out there you'd love to work with that you haven't managed to do so yet?
There's a client that I can't say that we just started working with. It's like been a long-term goal. We did some collaborations with some cool people as well. Like I said, we don't have the vision of, like, here's the next client we want. We haven't got, like, that ideal person. I think Richard Branson would be a good one for me. I think we could do some good work with him. Yeah, do you know what? It's like, I will trust in the process of me getting my head down, work on the stuff that I know. And, like, we've got a book coming out in a couple of months that's kind of coming to kind of be ready to be published and things. Yeah, I just, do you know what? I'm not necessarily holding out for, like, a particular client or something like that. It's more a case of, like, I'm just moving full steam ahead, making sure everything is right. So it's like the team is right. We've got room to scale. We haven't got this, like, problem in the business in some way, shape or form, sort of thing. It's trying to keep as healthy as possible and just moving in the right direction, and not necessarily having those specific people or clients that we want to have. And that's always been the way I've worked, and just let the opportunities come by when we see them.
I'm a big fan of your work, Tom, and I know you're a very humble guy. You're always really, really open to helping people. When you're on stage and you've got people crowding around you wanting to know stuff, you're always there to help people out. And as I mentioned earlier, you do have some fantastic programs. So if people want to connect with you, Tom, and find out a bit more about those programs, obviously I'll stick some links in the show notes here so people have got easy access to that. But if people want to connect with you just online, where do you hang out? What kind of social media do you tend to use yourself?
So Facebook's good for me. That's a good platform for me. I never go on Twitter. So if anyone asks me any questions about Twitter, I'm not there. LinkedIn, I'm not really there either. YouTube, of course, I'm there. So if you want to come and, like, subscribe to the channel, please do it at Viewability. Just type that in, I'm sure you'll find it. But the other way is through the website. So we've got tombreeze.com and viewability.co.uk. Those two platforms are the teaching platform and also the agency. We're looking to rehouse everything under viewability.co.uk, and that's our platform for now.
Well, Tom, I always ask the question towards the end of my conversations for your advice for someone who's listening to this interview now, and maybe they're on the bus or driving their car, stuck in a traffic jam, going to or from work, kind of fed up, thinking about taking that big, bold leap, starting something of their own. What would be your advice for that person who maybe has got some fear holding them back at the moment?
It's not necessarily a motivational thing, it's more of a strategy thing. And what I would say is, like, if you have a business or you have a product or whatever you think you're going to do, think about who your ideal customer would be. It's this person, and then try and paint a picture of what they're doing by the time they would be interested in what it is you have to hear. So let's say, for example, they're at home, what time of day it is, what sort of device they're on, mobile, desktop, tablet, whatever it might be. Do they have kids running around in the background, or are they at home by themselves? What sort of house they live in, where in the world would they be? All that, like, really paint the picture as clearly as you can. And at that point, think about what it is they would be typing in to potentially find you. What would they be searching? Like, would they be typing in how to do something? Whatever it is that you think, that's what this person's going to type in at that moment of time, and then you need to be there. Be there at that moment and then be helpful. If you're driving this car right now, think of those 4 C's, the claim, the credibility, the content, the call to action. Just run that through in your head, and you can just think it out loud for now. Like, think about all those 4 things. Like, what would the thing you could teach someone would be really, really valuable? Why should they listen to you? And then it's like, right, what content is it again? And then how are you going to take that person to take the next step with you? Make sure that all is logical. And then you've got a plan for a video ad. You've got a plan for any advertising you do. And just don't worry about being a salesperson. Just worry about keeping really good content in your video ad to the point at which someone says, that's incredible. Thank you so much. What's the next step? And if you can get to that point, business will be easy for you. It's just a case of, like, people overcomplicate things all the time. They say you need to have these 15,000 things to do at any one time. And that's why people get overwhelmed. Keep it simple. What's your one ad for that one person? Run that campaign and see if you can make it turn into money. Because if you can, and you can put $1 in, you get more than $1 back, and you can scale that up, you've got a business. You've got something where you're putting money in, you're investing in your own business, and you're growing your company, getting customers at a profit. Then everything else falls into place. Everything. Don't worry about anything else. Just worry about that turning $1 into $2 for something you actually enjoy doing, and life should become very exciting for you.
Golden advice to leave us on there, Tom. Thank you so much for that. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you today, and I wish you all the best success with the rest of 2017 and beyond, and I look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Thanks so much, buddy. Thank you so very much for having me on as well, and hopefully this has been useful for everybody.
I'm sure it will be. Thanks, Tom.
Cheers, mate.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did and took as much value from that. And Tom shared with us there that video advertising, especially YouTube, can be one of the fastest and quickest ways to test an idea. So if you're thinking about starting something up right now, but you're not sure maybe if there's enough demand out there, or you just don't know what the competition's like, then why not try some YouTube advertising to test and see if you can drive some traffic for a very low cost to either sign up to your lead magnet, maybe join a webinar, or even start selling some products straight away. So if you'd like to find out more, I'd highly encourage you to go and search for Tom online and go and watch some of Tom's videos where he shares a lot more information with his followers. And also don't forget that Tom has created 2 really, really comprehensive online courses through his ad school. And that is focused on teaching you how to set up, create and run YouTube ads yourself without the need for any outside help. And also another course which focuses on how to do exactly the same for video advertising with Facebook. Now, the links for both of those will be in the show notes. So if you're listening on your phone, just tap on the icon, bring up the show notes, and you'll be able to click straight through to find out more about those. So that's it for this week's episode of Escape the Rat Race Radio. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time, but if you haven't already connected with the Escape the Rat Race private Facebook group, please head over to Facebook, search for Escape the Rat Race, #ETRR, and if you want to check out all of the other podcast interviews and the full video recordings from all of my monthly Escape the Rat Race meetups in London, then head over to etrr.online. I'm wishing you a wonderful week ahead. See ya.